Hi, everybody. This is Gertrude here in Wellington, New Zealand. I have a special guest that I want to invite to today's presentation. Her name is Vanessa Archer, and she is based in the United States. And she asked me to talk about the Ubuntu philosophy today. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, I'm trying to add her to the call. Vanessa, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, send me a like or a thumbs up or something so I can pick up on your profile so we can do this together. So I'm waiting for Vanessa to come online so that I can invite her to this call. She made a special request for me to talk about Ubuntu today. So please bear with me. There she is. Now let me see if I can add her to this call. I've never done Facebook Live with a guest, so if anybody out there can help me figure this out, that's what we're trying to do right now. I'm trying to add Vanessa to this call. Vanessa, I have just sent you a request to connect under Vessel of Honor. If you can accept that, I think we might be in business. Let me know when you've done that. Just send me a text message and I'll try again to invite you. So thank you for, okay, now Vanessa, I see that you've joined the call and now I have to figure out how to add you to this call. This is going to be interesting. So I have to select the viewer, tap their icon, tap invite to go live. If anybody out there has done a Facebook Live with a guest, please help me out here. I'm trying to figure out how to add a guest speaker to this call. Okay. So what I will do is I am going to go ahead without you, Vanessa. I hope you don't mind. And then we will share this video in your group. So I have been asked to talk today about the Ubuntu philosophy. And Ubuntu, Ngamuntu, Ngabantu, the literal translation from Zulu to English is, I am because you are. Ubuntu is an African philosophy that embodies an explanation of the condition of being human. In Ubuntu, there is no you, there is no me, there's only we. And I grew up with this philosophy, not having it ever explained to me, because it's really a way of life for most people in Africa, that we relate on a one-on-one basis. We believe in the collective whole. We believe in community. We believe in the fact that if I'm not okay, you're not okay. And my grandmother used to describe this philosophy with a description that really helps me explain it to other people. So if you can imagine that the human race is like the human body, and if you cut your finger, you start to bleed and your white blood cells will rush to that point to heal it, that is how we should be responding to each other in the world. So that if the 7 billion people on this planet hear that there's an earthquake in Haiti or in New Zealand, we all do a little something to help. Imagine if we all gave $1 to that country. $7 billion can be raised in literally a minute. So I believe that humanity and most people are sleepwalking through life these days. We are not fully conscious to each other. We're not fully aware of the people who are around us. We're not connecting on a one-on-one basis, and the sense of community is now lost. And I think when I incarnated in this flesh as an African woman, I decided to take on the Ubuntu philosophy as a message that I would help to spread in the world, to show people a different way of living and a different way of being. I feel blessed that I was born in Africa and I grew up with it, and it is so embodied in who I am. I practice Ubuntu on a day-by-day basis. So in Ubuntu, there's no you, there's no me, there's only we. The human race will survive if we work on the collective as opposed to working on the individual. In the Western world, a lot of people live for themselves, they work for themselves, they do what they do for themselves as individuals to a point where what is happening next door or across the street or in the office, we aren't conscious of each other. And I'm really excited because I did a TED talk on this particular topic, and this is how Vanessa found me. And I'm really honored that that TED talk is spreading. I want to make sure that before I die, I dumb down the philosophy to an extent that millions of people will get this. If you Google the word Ubuntu, and it is spelled Ubuntu, you will find Linux software. So Linux got the software and they created a piece of freeware. It's an operating system that you can download for free. They unfortunately did not acknowledge where they got the word from. So a lot of people who hear of Ubuntu actually think that it's Linux software. But the software was based on this African philosophy. Now, I've always said that I am a sum total of all the people I've ever met. Vanessa, I met you at 3 o'clock in the morning today. I woke up with a terrible headache and I'd gone to get a glass of water, and I saw your message reaching out to me saying, Gertrude, I watched your TED talk and I would love to connect. And the reason why I responded immediately is because I knew that there was some magic already happening in just you reaching out and you having seen me using social media and wanting again to share the philosophy with your following and your network. So that's why I responded at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, for most people, they would think that this is absolutely crazy. Why would you do that at 3 a.m.? It was because I was fully present to the fact that there is something magical happening between you and me, and hopefully something magical that will happen with the people who are on this call. So when you are present, you respond immediately when you see something that comes into your awareness. You could be standing at a bus stop or at a train station waiting for your train to arrive or your bus to arrive, and there's a random stranger standing right next to you. You will be surprised what will happen if you strike a conversation with that person. When you find out who they are, what they do, where they're going, their ideas and their philosophies about life. But the problem is that in most Western societies, you ignore the person who's standing right next to you. I believe that people are doors to other worlds. And unless you engage and speak to other human beings, you will miss out on learning about a whole other world that you weren't aware of. So being aware of people, I think, is where the magic really starts. Humanity is sleepwalking through life right now. A lot of us are existing in a very unconscious way, where we could be in the office and you have a colleague whose mother died in the morning, And you never even bothered to say, good morning, how are you today? When I started to embody the Ubuntu philosophy, I remembered how it is woven into my language. So in Zimbabwe, when you greet someone in the morning, you say, Mangwanani mamukase, which means, good morning, how did you rise? And the response is, Ndamuka kana mamukao, which means I woke up well if you woke up well. What that literally means is that if the other person is not okay, I'm not okay. We are one organism. There's no difference between you and me. And the desensitization of humanity right now is creating problems that can be solved in a split second. Why are people in the developing world dying of starvation while people in the developed world are dying of obesity? We are living in a sense of not enoughness. There is enough in this universe to go around. There is abundance. But as a race, we have forgotten this. We've gone to the individual, and it's all about me and my family and how I'm going to survive, to the extent that you can walk past a homeless person in the street and not even see them. I was sharing yesterday with one of my clients a story of something that happened to me in California. Beginning of last year, I had gone to visit one of my business mentors in LA. And he took me to dinner, and he had invited 2 young girls from the UK to have dinner with us. And I started sharing with them my work, the things that I'm doing as an advocate for women's rights and children's rights. And the subject of female genital mutilation came up. And I told them the different organizations that I'm involved in and how I try and educate and conscientize women on the continent that it's a practice that doesn't need to be done anymore. But what was weird is that at the end of that dinner, we got out of the restaurant and we were about to cross the street. And it was almost as if everything I had said at the dinner table manifested in the form of a crazy looking woman who came and grabbed my hand as I was about to walk across the street. And she pulled me back, and she looked quite scary. She looked homeless. She wasn't clean, but she gripped my hand and she said, help me, help me. And I remembered being really calm. She didn't scare me, but I looked into her eyes and I said to her, what can I do to help you? And she said, I am so hungry. I'm hungry. Please just give me money for food. And so I reached into my purse and I pulled out the coins that I had. I didn't have much cash on me. I had about $3 or $4, and I gave her the money. And then I was about to cross the street, and she followed me again and grabbed my wrist a second time. And she knelt in the middle of the street and said, I need to pray for you. And she started praying for me. Now, this is in Los Angeles. I am in the middle of the street. The cars are coming, and there's a homeless woman grabbing my hand. So I tried to pick her up and drag her across the street so we wouldn't get run over. And when we got across the street, my friend who's from LA said to me, Gertrude, this is crazy. Let go of the homeless woman. This is LA. You can't do that. There's a lot of crazy people here. And so I assured him that I was fine and there was no way I was going to leave her to get run over when the cars were coming. And so I asked her what her name was. And it turns out that she was from Ethiopia. She had an American accent, and she started telling me about her life. She said she had come to America when she was 8 years old, and at the age of 4, she had gone through female genital mutilation and had been sold to a man who was 60 years old, who raped her every night. And through a weird series of coincidences, she ended up as a refugee in the United States. Now, I still get goosebumps when I share the story because the girls I was walking with came back and we had had dinner together. And they said to me, Gertrude, that's everything you were talking about during dinner. And it was true. all of my words manifested in a person, a woman who had experienced this. And after that evening, I had to send an email to apologize to my host for what I did, because it was insane, and she wouldn't leave. And she continued walking with us. So she walked us to where we had parked the car. And then she said, I don't want you to forget me. I want to show you where I live. And by another weird series of coincidences, we had parked the car across the street in a street called Hope Street. And on the other side of the street was an old shabby looking hotel. And she said, that's where I live. Please don't ever forget me. So why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because we go through life and we see the homeless and we don't really see them. We don't see the humanity behind the person who's lying on that park bench, probably starving, probably alone, probably scared. We don't see the humanity in each other anymore. So in Ubuntu, I always try to encourage people to remember two things. Put your family first. Your family comes first. Do you know that within family units, there are people who are so far apart emotionally and physically? You could live in the same space and not talk to each other, not connect with each other, not find out how their day went, but you're in the same house. So put your family first. Put aside your differences. Number two, your community comes next. The house you live in. Do you know your neighbor on either side of your house? When I moved to the UK, I was 19 years old. And for the first time in my life, I lived in a community with people that didn't look me in the eye. In Africa, if you bump into someone, you greet them, you talk to them. They could be random strangers, but you never pass another human being without acknowledging them and acknowledging their humanity. And my next door neighbor in London died. She was an 86-year-old woman who lived alone. And the milkman kept coming and putting the milk bottles outside her door. They found out that she was dead when the flies started to come out onto the street. And I remember it shook me to the core of my body. I couldn't understand how an 86-year-old woman had nobody who looked out for her, nobody who checked on her on a day-by-day basis. In Africa, we look after the elderly. We look after orphaned children. They are assimilated into a family. And this woman died alone. And I couldn't get that. I couldn't understand how that could happen in a society in the UK. I remember standing at bus stops or at the train station, and I would greet people just the way I did when I was in Africa. And people looked at me like I was crazy. And sometimes they would look right through me as if I didn't exist. And I would phone my mother in Zimbabwe. And I would tell her, I'll say, Mama, I feel like I'm disappearing. I feel like I'm not here anymore. And I'm crying because looking back at that time in my life, my very existence up until I was 19 was confirmed by the people around me, by my family, by my community, by the people who saw me every day. And now I was living in London with people who didn't even acknowledge that I was there. And I felt like I was disappearing every single day. So that is Ubuntu. It's all about connection. It's about looking somebody in the eyes when you bump into them. In the movie Avatar, they again used the Ubuntu philosophy and never acknowledged what it meant. If anybody's watched Avatar, you will see that the aliens in the movie when they greet each other, they say, I see you. In Southern Africa, we say sabona. In Zulu, when you greet someone, you say sabona. And sabona means I see you, literally translated, but it's not the seeing of sight. It's an acknowledgement of that person's humanity and yours. In the Indian communities, they say namaste. You are acknowledging the other person as a human being. That is what Ubuntu means. And in my culture, it's even woven in words like we do not have a word for cousin. We don't have a word for uncle and for aunt. So when I refer to my first cousins or extended cousins, they're either brother or sister. We don't have a word for cousin. When I refer to my mother's older sister, the word for mother is amai. And my mother's older sister is amai guru, which means big mother. My mother's young sister is amai nini. The same thing with our fathers. The word for father is baba. The word for my dad's big brother is babam kuru, which is big father. For my dad's younger brother is babam nini. But if my father or my mother are not in the room and I'm talking to my uncle or my aunt, I refer to them as amai or amai nini or babam or baba. So you drop the pretext there. It actually doesn't matter. My father's brothers and my mother's sisters are my mother and my father. And it was an amazing system because it meant that if a child was orphaned and their mother died, they had other mothers to latch onto. They had other fathers to latch onto. So we never had orphanages in Africa. Children were assimilated into a home. I grew up with cousins whose parents had died, and sometimes they weren't even related directly to us, but we never had that concept of an orphanage. Children were brought up in homes. Somebody would adopt them and take them in. So Vanessa, you have made me talk about a subject that I know I was born to share. And I thank you for this opportunity this morning. My heart is full and overflowing. You're living in America. Spread this philosophy, spread this concept. And it's something that you do on a day-by-day basis in acknowledging the people around you, in showing connection, in showing love. The world will change if we can go back to realizing that we are more similar than we are different. And one of the things that I have learned is that I am a sum total of every single person I have ever met. They have left an imprint of themselves with me, and I'm hoping that I leave an imprint of myself with the people that know me and understand me and get to understand what this philosophy really means. It is a way of life, and if you can grasp this philosophy, you will live at the level of magic every single day. Yesterday, I drove up north. 2 days ago, I went to the north part of New Zealand, and I was meeting with some new clients, 2 women that I met through Facebook. One of them is from New Zealand, but she lives in Germany, and the other one is from Canada, and she also lives in New Zealand. And so I went to meet the first one in a town called Rotorua. We had an amazing, amazing connection. And now I'm helping her to write her book and set up her business and be a business mentor for her. And in the morning, I had posted a Facebook Live video talking about my being in that part of the country and just how grateful I was to live in New Zealand, this magical place that I get to see every day and be on holiday every day. And the other girl, who's based an hour away from Rotorua, got in touch with me and said, Gertrude, what are you up to? And I was really exhausted. I'd driven 8 hours to get there. And I was standing outside a hot springs, ready to go in and just decompress. If you ever come to New Zealand, Rotorua is beautiful. And she said, I'm actually here in Mount Maunganui. I work at a place that has these hot pools. Why don't you drive out and come and spend the night with me and we can get to meet? I didn't hesitate. I knew that this girl had something special. For her to invite a random stranger, and Tracy, thank you for what you did for me last night. I went and spent a night at her house, and I discovered a sister from another mother. Tracy had gone to Tanzania. She had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, had been working in orphanages, helping kids whose parents have died of HIV-related diseases. A woman who is living what I try to live on a day-by-day basis by helping children in Africa. And here she was in New Zealand, and I was in her home. And I remember she gave up her bed. And I said, Tracy, why didn't you tell me? I could have checked into a hotel. And she said, I knew if I told you, you wouldn't have said yes. She had such an African way about her. And I think because she had been to Africa and lived there and experienced Ubuntu firsthand, it's now become a way that she lives. So pay attention to the people who you bump into. And with this virtual platform called the internet, I keep saying that the world is flat now. The world has literally been flattened by the use of the internet. And there's been so many people on this call that I want to acknowledge. Tony Key, I haven't connected with you, but thank you for listening. I have a friend, Lala Gonzalez, out there in New Mexico. Thank you. Colleen, you're always on my calls. I know that you're in the UK. So many of you are on this call. Please spread and share this video. Help us spread Ubuntu all over the world. It's a powerful philosophy. It's a way to live. And Vanessa, thank you again for this opportunity. I am going to have to decompress and just really put my thinking cap on in terms of what I want to share in bullet form with this video, so that if you ever get to share this video with someone else, you understand what the philosophy means. And I'll also share my TED Talk. Please spread it across the internet. Vanessa, what you've done for me today is phenomenal. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for sharing my story. And it's an absolute honor to be connected with you. And I know that we're going to meet very, very soon. This wasn't an accidental meeting. So this is Gertrude here in Wellington, New Zealand. Thank you for listening. Ubuntu to all of you around the world. Spread the philosophy, share it, live by it, and magic will happen to you every single day. So bye for now. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Whew.